Americas, that roughly 48% ended up in Brazil.
So I have 12, I'm going to say 13 to 14 million.
Yeah.
Almost 12% of that went to.
48% went to Brazil. Like the Brazil was the main destination, the main single destination. Then the rest were spread around throughout the Caribbean and North America. But Brazil was like the single biggest destination for African slaves.
I also heard that when I was in Brazil, and I remember I was learning about Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that apparently the I can't remember if it was the Prime Minister or the King. Yeah, it was the King of Portugal fled from Portugal because of they were scared of Napoleon.
Napoleon, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And then his son became Emperor of Brazil. He led Brazil's fight for independence, and we actually have a statue of the guy over here. He's the statue. He's the guy atop the column.
Oh wow! So that's good timing, then, eh?
Yeah. Good timing, yes.
So he's the one what fought for Brazil's independence
in 1822. Later on, he had to abdicate the throne in Brazil in favor of his son, Peter II, and he came to Europe to defend his daughter's claim to the Portuguese throne. So Brazil had a very atypical independence because it was a monarchy when it became independent. Imagine if, for example, during World War II, the Germans occupied England, and the monarchy fled to Canada. And then after World War II is over, the royal family returns to England, but the Prince of Wales stays behind in Canada, and a few years later declares war against the British Empire and removes Canada from the Commonwealth or the British Empire and becomes Emperor of Canada.
Okay, that's basically what happened in Brazil.
That's basically what happened in Brazil. But he's still the Prince of Wales, so he's still the, so that's what happened in Brazil and Portugal. But his son especially, Peter II, was an emperor who did not own any slaves. And he basically believed in abolition, but he wasn't willing to involve himself in the debate on abolition because he was a constitutional monarch and he believed it was up to the political process to make that decision. But it dragged on for a long time. Brazil only abolished slavery in 1888. It was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to do so. And shortly after the abolition of slavery in Brazil and the emancipation of all the slaves in the country, there was a coup d'etat that deposed the monarchy in Brazil as well. Okay? And then the Emperor of Brazil came to Portugal. But I'm sure that in Brazil you've also learned about the Quilombos as well. So this is a illustration of a Quilombo. They were very big in the 1600s, in the 17th century. And they were communities that were formed by renegades to cultivate land, to share resources, cattle, to defend themselves against European settlers, sometimes using weapons that they stole or weapons that they made themselves. And it was also in Brazil where the martial art of capoeira was invented in the plantations.
Yeah, the Quilombos are what we're just talking about basically. in Jamaica we call it the Maroons.
The Maroons, yes.
Yeah, so it's the same thing basically, just a different name.
Just a different name, exactly. Because there's so many elements which are similar, because it's the same economic model and the same values of the people who are the settlers, and the same background of the people who are enslaved as well.
Yeah, well, that's
so
what I
some
always say to
tendencies
people.
start to...
Yeah, because what I always say to people is that you have to realize when it comes to the slaves, you know, they came from different parts of the world, but you can still be related to them, because even the reality of like the Colombos that we talk about and the Maroons, you didn't decide where you was going, you just got picked and taken to different parts of the world.
In different parts of the world,
so you could be, you know, so you could have family everywhere, you know what I mean? And the same people are going for the same thing wherever they go to.
And,
so, you know.
And in the Quilombos, because you didn't have the masters, you would find people practicing Islam, people practicing Catholicism, but mixing African rituals or Native American rituals. They were free to express themselves and their faith the way they wanted to, without the oversight of European masters, enforcing like a strict dogma or guidelines. Shall we go this way?
Because the Common Blair was that's known for Brazil.
Sorry?
Condom Blair.
Okay.
It's spirituality, but it's mixed between the different African traditions. You know, you don't find it nowhere else in the world. Yeah. But it's mixed between the different African traditions, you know, from different parts of Africa.
Different elements, exactly, all together.